If you are over 60, a probiotic can be useful in the right situation and completely unnecessary in another. The bottle may promise 10, 30, even 50 billion organisms, but that number alone tells you almost nothing. What matters is the strain, the reason you are taking it, and your health. I'm Dr. Claire Bennett. Today, I want to make probiotics much less confusing. Who may reasonably consider them, who should be cautious, and how to tell whether a product is actually worth trying. First, one important point. Turning 60 does not automatically create a need for a probiotic. There are no formal recommendations telling every healthy older adult to take one every day. Probiotics are live microorganisms, and their effects can depend heavily on the particular organism and the health problem being studied. Think of it this way. If your neighbor says, "This probiotic fixed my stomach," that is not enough information. Did she have constipation, diarrhea after antibiotics, irritable bowel syndrome? Was she taking a lactobacillus strain, a bifidobacterium strain, or a yeast such as Saccharomyces boulardii? Those details matter, and after 60, they matter even more because health becomes more individual. One person is active, takes very little medication, and has an occasional sluggish bowel. Another person has diabetes, kidney disease, receives chemotherapy, has been in hospital twice this year, and recently needed broad-spectrum antibiotics. It would make no sense to give those two people exactly the same advice. So let's start with the group most likely to ask me about probiotics: older adults with constipation, bloating, or irregular bowel habits. Constipation becomes more common with age for many reasons. Activity may decrease, fluid intake may fall, some medicines can slow the bowel, and the way the bowel and pelvic floor work can change over time. The gut microbiome also changes with age, but that does not mean every change needs to be corrected with a supplement. For an otherwise stable older adult with chronic constipation, a carefully chosen probiotic may be reasonable as a trial, but I would call it an option, not a guaranteed treatment. A 2023 systematic review focused specifically on older patients with constipation, included 6 randomized controlled trials and 444 participants. Compared with placebo, probiotics were associated with roughly 1 additional bowel movement per week. But the authors rated the certainty of that evidence low to very low. That second sentence matters just as much as the first. A research finding can look encouraging without being strong enough to promise the same result to every person watching this video. So let's make the goal practical. If you have a bowel movement twice a week and you begin a probiotic, a sensible question is not, "Has my entire microbiome been reset?" A better question is, over the next few weeks, am I going more regularly? Am I straining less? Do I feel less uncomfortable? If nothing changes, do not keep buying the same bottle for 6 months simply because it says gut health. A probiotic should have a job. If it is not doing that job, reassess. And before you blame your microbiome, look at the basics. Are you drinking enough for your medical situation? Are you eating enough fiber and increasing it gradually rather than suddenly? Are you moving every day? Have you started a medicine that may be contributing to constipation? And most importantly, is this an old, familiar bowel pattern or a new change? A new persistent change in bowel habits after 60 should not automatically be treated with probiotics. Blood in the stool, unexplained weight loss, persistent or severe abdominal pain, fever, repeated vomiting, black stools, anemia, or a significant unexplained change in bowel habits deserves medical assessment. A supplement should never delay an appropriate diagnosis. Now let's talk about antibiotics, because this is where probiotic advice becomes much more complicated. Antibiotics can disrupt the intestinal microbiome and cause antibiotic-associated diarrhea. The NE Office of Dietary Supplements notes that antibiotic-associated diarrhea can occur in up to about 30% of people taking antibiotics, although the actual risk differs according to the antibiotic, the patient, and the clinical setting. You may have heard, "Always take a probiotic when you take an antibiotic." I would not use the word always. One of the largest trials involving older adults was called Placide. Researchers studied hospitalized patients aged 65 and older who were receiving antibiotics. Nearly 3,000 people were enrolled. Antibiotic-associated diarrhea occurred in 10.8% of participants receiving a 4-strain microbial preparation and 10.4% of those receiving placebo. That is essentially no meaningful difference. C. difficile diarrhea occurred in 0.8% of the probiotic group and 1.2% of the placebo group, but that difference was not statistically significant either. So does that prove probiotics never help older people taking antibiotics? No. And this is exactly where medical headlines can become misleading. A 2022 systematic review and meta-analysis included 8 randomized trials involving 4,691 adults aged 65 and older. When researchers looked at 6 trials in which probiotics were started within 48 hours of beginning antibiotics, they found a lower rate of antibiotic-associated diarrhea. But the review also acknowledged important limitations. Different studies used different organisms. They defined diarrhea differently. Treatment durations differed, and the number of trials was still relatively limited. This is why 2 people can show you 2 scientific papers and appear to be saying opposite things. Sometimes they are studying different strains. Sometimes they are studying different patients. Sometimes treatment began at a different time. And sometimes the outcome itself was different. Even professional guidelines do not completely agree. The American Gastroenterological Association has suggested certain specific probiotic strains or combinations for prevention of C. difficile infection in people taking antibiotics. The American College of Gastroenterology took a more conservative position and recommends against probiotics for primary or secondary prevention of C. difficile infection. The ACG educational material discussing its guidelines specifically highlights the Placide data and states that probiotics are not recommended for routine primary or secondary C. difficile prevention. That disagreement is useful information. It tells you that take any probiotic with every antibiotic is much too simplistic. So if you are over 60 and starting an antibiotic, I would ask 3 questions. First, what are we trying to prevent? Ordinary antibiotic-associated diarrhea? Or are you worried specifically about C. difficile? Second, are you a generally healthy person living independently? Or are you seriously ill, immunocompromised, or currently hospitalized? Third, is there evidence for the exact strain or combination in the product you are considering? That brings us to one of the biggest marketing traps, CFUs, colony-forming units. You may see 5 billion, 20 billion, 50 billion, even 100 billion CFU printed in enormous letters on the bottle. A larger number is not automatically a better probiotic. The NE specifically notes that products with higher CFU counts are not necessarily more effective. The health effect depends far more on which microorganism is present and whether that organism has evidence for the purpose in question. Imagine buying a key. You would never walk into a hardware store and say, "Give me the biggest key you have." You want the key that fits the lock. Probiotics are similar. The strain is the key. Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG is not automatically interchangeable with every other organism carrying a lactobacillus name. One bifidobacterium strain cannot automatically be substituted for another. And Saccharomyces boulardii is a yeast rather than a bacterium. Different organisms can have different effects. For Canadians, there is one practical detail I particularly want you to remember. If you purchase a probiotic sold as a natural health product, look for an NPN, the natural product number. Health Canada also requires strain identification for probiotic natural health products because the strain is essential information when evaluating the evidence for a product. Turn the bottle around, read the smaller print, look for the genus, the species, and the strain designation. Check the expiry date. Check storage instructions. Some products require refrigeration. Others are stable at room temperature. And do not assume a huge CFU number compensates for a vague label. Now, what about yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and other fermented foods? This needs an important distinction. Fermented food and probiotic food are not automatically the same thing. Some fermented foods contain live organisms at the time you eat them. Some do not. And some organisms in fermented foods have never been shown to produce a particular health benefit. The knee therefore cautions that simply having microorganisms in a food does not automatically establish a probiotic effect. For many healthy older adults, plain yogurt or kefir that you tolerate well can still be a sensible food. You get nutrition along with the cultures. But I would choose it because it fits your diet, not because I expect one food to solve every digestive complaint. If dairy bothers you, do not force yourself to eat yogurt because somebody told you it is good for the gut. And if you have diabetes, check how much added sugar is in flavored versions. The whole food still matters. Now, let's talk about irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. This is another area where people can spend a surprising amount of money moving from one probiotic to another. Research has found modest improvements in some IBS symptoms in some trials. But the studies use many different strains, formulations, and doses. The NIE review concludes that probiotics might help some IBS symptoms while emphasizing that better quality research is still needed to determine which strain, dose, duration, and IBS subtype are most likely to respond. So if you already have a diagnosis of IBS and want to try a probiotic, make it an experiment with a beginning and an end. Do not start 3 supplements at once. Choose one identifiable product. Keep the rest of your routine reasonably stable. Decide what symptom you are measuring. Is it bloating, pain, stool frequency, stool consistency? Then watch that specific symptom over a defined period. If nothing meaningful improves, reconsider the product. If bloating becomes clearly worse, stop and reassess. Some people experience temporary gas when beginning probiotics, but discomfort is not evidence that your body is detoxing. More symptoms do not mean more benefit. Now we come to the group I am most concerned about, people who should be more careful. For generally healthy people, probiotics are unlikely to cause serious harm, and common adverse effects tend to be mild digestive symptoms such as gas. But that safety profile changes when somebody is seriously ill or significantly immunocompromised. Both NIE resources and NCCI caution that probiotic-associated complications are more likely in people with severe illness or weakened immune systems. That can include people receiving intensive chemotherapy, some transplant patients, people receiving substantial immunosuppressive treatment, or critically ill patients. These are not situations where I would casually self-prescribe a live microbial supplement from a supermarket shelf. Central venous catheters deserve particular attention, especially with yeast-containing probiotics. The NIE Office of Dietary Supplements notes that at least 60 reports have been published since 1966 describing fungemia associated with probiotics containing Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Many involved patients in intensive care, people receiving enteral or parenteral nutrition, people with central venous catheters, or those receiving broad-spectrum antimicrobial treatment. That sounds frightening when you hear it out of context, so let me put it back into context. These complications are rare. I do not want a healthy 68-year-old watching this video to become afraid of yogurt. The lesson is simply this: natural does not mean risk-free, and risk is not equally distributed. There is another group that should not simply keep adding probiotics. People who develop persistent watery diarrhea after antibiotics, particularly after hospitalization, or when diarrhea is accompanied by abdominal pain, fever, dehydration, or significant weakness. Age over 65 is itself an important risk factor for C. difficile infection. In that situation, another supplement may not be the answer. You may need assessment and testing. The same principle applies if you have inflammatory bowel disease, major bowel surgery, short bowel problems, or another complicated gastrointestinal condition. Do not reduce the question to, are probiotics good or bad? Ask, is this particular organism appropriate for my condition? That is a much better medical question. So, who may reasonably consider probiotics after 60? A generally healthy older adult with chronic constipation may consider a time-limited trial after obvious causes and warning signs have been reviewed. Someone with diagnosed IBS may consider a structured trial aimed at one specific symptom. A person beginning antibiotics may have a reason to discuss a specific probiotic with a physician or pharmacist, particularly if there is a history of antibiotic-associated diarrhea, but that should not become an automatic rule for every older adult. Who should pause and ask first? Someone who is seriously ill. significantly immunocompromised, receiving intensive cancer treatment, receiving major transplant-related immunosuppression, hospitalized with complex illness, living with a central venous catheter, or dealing with a complicated gastrointestinal disease. Who probably does not need a probiotic? A healthy person who feels well, has regular bowel habits, and is buying one only because a bottle claims that everybody over 60 needs microbiome support. There is no formal recommendation telling all healthy older adults to take probiotics simply because of age. If you decide to try one, remember 4 simple rules. Give it one clear purpose. Choose a product that identifies the strain, not only the CFU count. Set a time limit and monitor the symptom you actually want to improve. And stop or seek medical advice if you develop significant worsening, persistent diarrhea, fever, bleeding, severe pain, or another concerning symptom. Let me finish with 2 people. Mary is 72. She is active. She takes medication for blood pressure. She has had mild chronic constipation for years. Her doctor has reviewed her medicines. There are no warning signs. She wants to see whether a well-labeled probiotic makes a noticeable difference. A short, structured trial while tracking bowel frequency and straining may be reasonable. Now imagine Robert. Robert is 74. He is receiving chemotherapy. He has a central line. He recently spent a week in hospital, and he is taking broad-spectrum antibiotics. Robert should not simply copy Mary's probiotic routine. His risk profile is completely different. He should discuss any live microbial supplement with the medical team caring for him. Same age group, same word, probiotic. Completely different decision. That is what I want you to remember. After 60, do not choose a probiotic because it has the loudest claim. Do not choose it because it has the highest CFU count. And do not choose it simply because your neighbor likes it. Choose it, if you need it, according to the problem you are trying to solve, the evidence for the specific strain, and your own medical risk. A probiotic can be a useful tool. It is not universal insurance for your gut. And in senior health, safer decisions are usually specific decisions. A specific symptom, a specific goal, a specific product, and a clear reason to continue or stop.